All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, we've only got about a month to go before pitchers and catchers report for spring training, and the trend that has overtaken baseball in recent years is continuing this winter as there are still some big name free agents that are still looking for jobs, with one of the biggest names still on the market being first baseman Pete Alonso. Now, on the surface, it appeared that it was going to be a slam dunk for Alonso to re-sign a long-term deal with the New York Mets, but that has not been the case. Alonso turned down a 7-year extension for $158 million from the Mets back in 2023. And then later that year, he hired super agent Scott Boras. But the recent winters have not been kind to Boras's clients, to the bulk of them at least, as we've seen many of them joining teams on 11th hour deals just before or even during spring training. So Boris and Alonso were and have been seeking a mega deal from the Mets, and it has never come to fruition. And at this point, it's not going to. And honestly, Mets aside, Pete Alonso is not going to get that mega deal from another MLB team either, because if he was, it would have happened a long time ago. Okay. So the questions are, will Pete get signed? I think he will, but the other question is going to be by whom? You look at it right now, the pool of teams, uh, that could go out there and sign Pete Alonso, they're shrinking. And at the end of the day, that's giving the Mets more leverage if they want him back. We just saw Anthony Santander sign with the Toronto Blue Jays today, and they were a team that was rumored to be interested in Pete Alonso. Okay, another question is, why didn't Alonso get the mega deal from the Mets that he was seeking? I'm not sure, okay, because I'm not a baseball insider. But I mean, you look at it, and he's a legit power hitter. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're talking about a guy that in 6 MLB seasons, and granted, one of those MLB seasons was a 60 game 2020 COVID season. Alonso already has 226 home runs career wise. All right. He's right there knocking on the door to be the Mets all time leader in that category, should he return to Queens for next year. But you're talking about a guy that hits 53 in 2019, 37 in 2021, 40 in 2022, 46 in 2023, and 34 this past year. Does Pete Alonso strike out a lot? Yeah. Okay, most power hitters do. He's basically a career 250 hitter. He's a guy, he's going to have those lulls, don't get me wrong, at the plate. And he's going to have those moments where he gets in the zone and connects. But it's one of those where, is he a one dimensional player? Could be a possibility because, Pete's not going to hit a lot of doubles. He is going to get his hits, don't get me wrong, but he's never going to be a guy that's going to flirt with giving you 200 hits. But at the same time, he has been durable. You're talking about a guy that just played 162 games last year. He's played 150 games at least in every single year, again, with the exception of the COVID year. Okay, so it's one of those where clearly the Mets, like other teams, they're not going to break the bank on him. And we've seen and we are seeing this off season the way that things are being played out, and the market for the first base position. Okay, so all of that stuff factors in. Another question is, why give Juan Soto the mega deal and not Pete Alonso if you're the Mets, because he's your homegrown guy? The bottom line is, I mean, you look at it, Juan Soto from a couple of years ago, when he was still with the Washington Nationals, he turned down 440. Okay. And you knew at the very least he was going to get 500. And of course, the season that he just put up last year for the Yankees, helping them get to the World Series and everything like that. And then, of course, once you get a bidding war for somebody's services like that, hey, you know what? It all plays out. But it's one of those where if you're Scott Boras, and of course, he's the mega agent to the stars, if you say, as far as baseball goes. In my opinion, if you're Boris, though, you can't get annoyed as far as the Mets, playing hardball with Pete Alonso right now, because these are the same Mets that just paid one of your other marquee clients in Juan Soto. And current Mets team owner Steve Cohen, in a very short window, has shown a willingness to pay Boris's guys in the past. Okay. And I guarantee you that Steve Cohen will undoubtedly do the same in the future. And even the guys that Steve Cohen has not paid, for the most part, he's been in the mix as far as attempting to sign him. So if you're Boris, okay, you might need Steve Cohen more than he needs you. And the reason why I say it is this, because Steve Cohen is a big market owner who is willing to spend money. Not a lot of owners around MLB are willing to do that, especially in the day of the luxury tax. So you look at it right now. Are the Mets calling the bluff of Alonso and Boris? I think they are, because um, I'm sure that there have been offers on the table in this lengthy and surprising negotiation. They've been going back and forth. They've walked away from the table, this, that, and the third. But like I said, the pool of potential teams for Pete Alonso to sign with is shrinking. Okay, but excuse me, by the day. So you see that, and of course, the other question is going to be: will Mets team owner Steve Cohen overstep his president of baseball operations, David Stearns, in order to bring Alonso back? I don't see that scenario happening, because basically, when Steve Cohen hired David Stearns, he gave him the keys to the castle. We only saw Steve Cohen really get involved as much as I can remember. I could be wrong on this. I do remember him getting involved with the Francisco Lindor talks as they were stalling, and I do remember him getting involved with the Edwin Diaz negotiations. But of course, in the case of Francisco Lindor, that was before David Stearns came in to run the front office. You hire a guy like David Stearns, you're not going to overstep him. You're going to allow him to do his job. I do believe um, that Steve Cohen does want Pete Alonso back. I believe that David Stearns wants Pete Alonso back. I think Pete Alonso wants to be back with the Mets, but he wants to come back for what he feels is fair value. And the Mets at the same time want him back for what they consider to be fair value. So at some point, sooner rather than later, they're going to have to find some middle ground. And, for me, I think that middle ground is going to result in Pete Alonso coming back to the Mets. We heard the reports from last week. They walked away from the table. It looked like it wasn't going to be a possibility. But again, we're about a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting. Okay. So at some point, it's got to give in. And typically in recent years, with what we've seen with the guys who are going out there looking for these big deals and they didn't get it, when they finally got deals, either whether it was just before spring training or during spring training, they didn't get the money or the years that they were looking for. You think about Cody Bellinger a couple of years ago. He never got the deal that he was seeking, the long-term deal. Okay, went to the Cubs, and then he came back and got a 3-year deal with the Cubs with the opt-outs. You think about Blake Snell last year with the San Francisco Giants. Okay, that was an 11th hour deal, basically a 1-year deal with an opt out. And of course, he opted out, and he finally got the years, or at least some of the years that he was seeking this offseason from the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, I mean, it is what it is. And the bottom line is baseball is changing. Okay, and it has changed as teams are no longer giving out the mega deals in free agency like they're candy, especially with the additional luxury tax. The mega deals are only set aside for the super of superstars. We're seeing more of these teams that are looking to lock up their young guys early. Okay, most recently, you think about Kansas City with Bobby Witt Jr. as an example of that. We saw San Diego Padres do it with Fernando Tatis Jr. We also saw the Seattle Mariners do it with Julio Rodriguez. They're trying to lock these guys up to team friendly deals for as long as possible. And, the guys who are hitting free agency now around 29, 30, or 31, they're kind of in limbo because, of course, there was a time where, you hit free agency at that point. Okay, a guy like Pete Alonso would have gotten 8 years, 160, 8 years, 200, 10 years, maybe 240, a type deal. And of course, unfortunately for him, those days are in the past. So you look at Scott Boras and you look at Pete Alonso. Clearly, they've got to take this time to read the room. And okay, like I said, that room and that pool of buyers is shrinking. And as it shrinks, it's more leverage for the Mets. So if I were a betting man, and I'm not, but if I were, my gut tells me that Pete Alonso should be back with the Mets for 2025. It's not a guarantee, of course. You think about it. I do, like I said, I think the front office does want him back, but they want him back at their price tag. And of course, Pete wants to come back to Queens, but at his price tag as well. There's a lot on the table for everybody involved here. You figure if you're the Mets, you just went out there and paid a boatload of money, literally, to get Juan Soto. You need a bat like Pete's in the lineup to protect him. You think about one of Pete's last at bats in a Met uniform, game three of the wild card round last October against the Milwaukee Brewers. And of course, I think for that moment alone, regardless if Pete Alonso is playing for the Mets in 2025 or not, he's going to live in blue and orange lore for a very long time. We're also talking about a guy who's on the cusp of being the Mets all-time home run leader. Okay, that number of 252 is currently held by the great Darryl Strawberry, and the Strawman has not played for the Mets in about 35 years. So at this point, there's a generation of Met fans who only know of Darryl Strawberry from YouTube or when he returns to a City Field for something to honor the 86 Mets, or basically when he got his number retired. So there's a new generation of Met fans that would like to see a new home run king. And of course, for a guy like Steve Cohen who likes to market things, that's a great thing to market for the upcoming season as far as Pete becoming your franchise's all-time home run leader. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing works out. Basically, this is a good old-fashioned baseball game of chicken. Okay. And now it's coming down to the point as far as who is going to blink. Like I said, my gut tells me that Pete is coming back to the Mets just due to the fact that the buyer pool is shrinking, and that means advantage New York Mets. Nobody expected Pete Alonso to be a free agent for this long into the offseason, but at the end of the day, it's the way it is. And again, it's another offseason where Scott Boras clients have struggled to find deals. Is MLB trying to like squeeze Scott Boras out? I do think that there are some teams out there that have grown tired of Boras and his negotiations, in my opinion. And also, there are teams that, granted, Boras has a job to do, and I totally get it. I'm not here to, you know, rain on his parade because he's very good at what he does. But I feel like from an outsider's perspective, I feel like there are teams out there who are tired of Boris trying to oversell his clients to them and possibly hold teams hostage in negotiations. And of course, you think recently to some Boris clients where it didn't work out and they got big money. You think about Chris Bryant a couple of years ago going to the Colorado Rockies. This is a former MVP with the Cubs. Okay. And it has been bad, okay, for him in Denver. And then you think about Jordan Montgomery last year going to the Arizona Diamondbacks and how that thing didn't work out. So I guarantee you that's in the back of the mind of a lot of these MLB owners, especially in this day and age with the harder luxury tax. You really have to be careful who you give the big money too, especially if you don't want to get into that luxury tax level. But nonetheless, it's a good old fashioned game of negotiations right now. I truly do think Pete's coming back to the Mets. Maybe I'm wrong, but at the end of the day, we've got to wait and see. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365 that you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.